Two guys in the dark.
My wife's close friend from graduate school lived in the big city and invited us to stay at her new condo for a weekend. This friend would be described as a person who looked down on people, like the people who go on normal grocery stores because of all the non organic corporate food there. We also knew that she was a pseudo vegetarian with a constantly shifting list of food allergies. We weren't too worried, though, because we were informed that we would most likely be eating at the friend's condo, and thus the food was entirely under her own control. How naive we were. When we arrived at the condo in the late afternoon, we found my wife's friend was not feeling well because of her newest round of wheat allergies. Naturally, because she wasn't feeling well, she didn't want to cook, which meant that we had to go out to eat. No problem. We were in a giant city with tons of food options. Surely there were many restaurants which catered to vegans. My wife's friend, though, decided that she didn't want to go to any vegan restaurant, despite my wife and I both insisting on it. Rather, she wanted to go to an upscale Asian fusion place. I was ready to weep as I looked at the menu while we waited for our table. I managed to warn my wife that we were in for the ride of our lives. Our waitress asked if we would like to start off with our drinks. Our friend had ordered a martini, but wanted it to be organic. Of course, the bar didn't have any organic alcohol, so they were unable to get her the drink that she wanted. That was strike one. The waitress gave us time to look over the menu, came back to take our orders about 5 minutes later. The place happened to be packed. Our friend began by giving the waitress a hard time about not having the alcohol, and then went on a rant about what she couldn't eat. Here's the list: wheat flour, soy, sesame, peanuts, meat of any kind, eggs, any products with corn. I'm honestly not sure where this one came from. And milk. She also noted that she was a vegetarian. The waitress looked at the rest of the table. I tried to lighten the mood by saying, I could eat everything. All this did was earn me a death stare from my wife's friend. I had to cut off part of my own thumb in order to free it from a metal device it was caught in. Somehow this dinner was more excruciating. So off we went, first to the entrees. The friend said that she wanted the pork stir-fry with vegetables. Her husband quickly pointed out that the pork is a meat. She asked for it to be replaced by tofu. Is there soy sauce in your stir-fry sauce? I was already nodding the answer as the waitress said yes. Crap. Okay. The next menu item, the chicken stir-fry with white Asian sauce. After again negotiating to have no meat in it, we ended up at the sauce, which of course had sesame oil and cornstarch, a double whammy. The sad part is this process has already taken about 5 minutes. The waitress had other tables that needed to be served, and tried her best to escape with a "why don't you look over the menu some more, and I'll be back soon." Smart move, but our friend was not having it. No, you will not leave the table until we have our orders placed. I know how long your kitchen can take. More of this until finally the waitress steered our friend to the appetizer portion of the menu. After a few minutes, they ended up ordering something, but they kept running into the same issue. Pretty much every single Asian dish has at least one of soy, wheat, egg, cornstarch, sesame, or peanuts. After about 15 minutes with the waitress, I wanted to grab my wife and run to the bathroom and cry. I once had to cut off part of my own thumb in order to free it from a metal device that it was caught in, and somehow this dinner was more excruciating. So my wife's friend finally looked happy. I got it. I'll have the sushi platter. The waitress told her sushi was fish, and thus was not vegetarian. Somehow this was not a problem. All of our orders were placed. 20 minutes or so to get our orders in. Not the worst possible scenario. But I was very curious of what could happen with the food when it arrived. So out it all came. And of course the sushi was raw on rice. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the explosion. Instead, my wife's friend grabbed a bottle of soy sauce, poured it on the sushi, began eating it, stating how good the sauce was. I dared not say a single word, instead focusing on my dish. To this day, I have no freaking idea what I had eaten. And I'm making small talk and eating as fast as possible so that we can get out of that restaurant. We finished the meal, or so I thought. When the waitress asked if we wanted dessert, I wanted nothing to do with ordering any more food, so I said that I was full and that I would like some tea. Bad move, it turned out. Our friend said that she also wanted tea, but she wanted to make sure that she didn't get any of that dirty tap water. She made the waitress bring out a teapot, along with bottles of water, and then told her to open up the bottles, pour them into the pot. The waitress complied, and the friend then told her to go heat the water up for our tea. I really hoped that the waitress went into the back and dumped the water and then filled it with water from the toilet. Anyways, we got our hot water for the tea, and our friend went on to order the chocolate cake. At this point, I almost jumped out of my seat. Why would you order that if you can't eat flour? That's exactly what I wanted to scream, but my wife had aimed a well-placed kick to my shin to keep me from saying it. The waitress told our friend the chocolate cake had flour, and the response that she gave was, "Oh, a little flour shouldn't hurt." She ate the whole thing herself, seeming to enjoy it. The waitress asked if she needed anything else, and then produced our bill, apparently split up by couples. Our friend said that the waitress did a horrible job, and only deserved a 10% tip because of how long it took for her to explain the menu. My wife and I were poor graduate students at this time. This meal is what we could have usually spent on food for half a week, but we knew that we had to make up for the missing tip, so we left 35%. I figured that we were saving on not having to pay for a hotel room, so I could pony up the missing amount. That could seem to be the end of the story. But of course it wasn't, because the following also happened during that weekend. 1. We had pancakes the next morning. Pancakes that's made with wheat flour. 2. I ditched the other 3 to do something for work, and actually spent half of the time that I was ditching them eating hot dogs, hamburgers, tacos, and shawarma. This remains a secret to this day, and my wife will probably get mad at me when she finds out that I ran to freedom on my own. 3. My wife's friend blatantly cheated on every board game that we played. 4. My wife's friend had caused hell at an Indian buffet for not having enough vegan-friendly options. She said that the cauliflower was not friendly enough because there were too many tomatoes in it. One great thing did come out of that weekend, though. We never visited that crazy nut job ever again. My wife stopped talking to her as well. I hate to say mean things about this person, but I do not know if I ever met a more selfish human being in my entire life. I used to work at a combination convenience store, gas station, ice cream parlor type of thing. We worked in an area that served both really rich customers and really poor people. We had families come in after a golf outing and drop $100. We also had people come in after their restaurant shift and get their usual order of a 30-pack of Miller Lite and a pack of Parliaments. Because of this mix, we had our fair share of garden variety stupid customers. We had your customers who would clearly see the menu, knew that we were big on corporate chain, and still would berate us for 5 minutes about how the ice cream was just too expensive, or how they should still get October's special deal, even though it was now December, or how we didn't have the same flavors that the store across town did. Look, man, I just work here. If I had my way, I'd be getting paid $100 per hour, and we would ban stupid customers. But that's just life. Anyway, one summer, a couple stores around town got busted for selling alcohol and tobacco to underage customers. So the company put in place a policy that we had to card everyone for everything, unless they looked like a walking corpse. This predictably led to one of the most stressful summers for everyone at the store. This was the summer that I learned that I could not be a drug dealer. Not that I wanted to. Because I learned that you do not want to be the person standing in between people and their fix. We had a number of regulars that flipped out when we carded them for trying to buy cigarettes. I get that it's ridiculous for a 50-year-old regular to be carded, but the rules are rules. One woman initially thought that I was joking, but lost it after I asked her for an ID a second time. Turns out she had a habit of driving around town without it, and thus didn't have it on her. She yelled at us for about 6 minutes, about how she was never coming back. I still cry that she's not bringing in that sweet $10 a week, her Marlboro Reds, in front of a store full of customers before storming out of the store, and peeling out of the parking lot, and then into traffic. I'm sure reckless driving, and driving without a license ticket is worth making a point about some smokes. Another man was clearly coming home from his office job downtown, bought a case of beer. I asked him for his card. He initially grumbled a little bit, but presented his license. While I was ringing him up, he must have decided that being carded for booze was what was wrong with this country, because he began to rant about how he didn't deserve this, and how I didn't have a right to pry into his life like that. And don't you know who I am? He said that he was an executive at a large multinational downtown and that he'd be boycotting the store and getting his coworkers to do the exact same thing. I'd never seen him before, and I'm sure corporate really misses that other $12 that he might have spent at our store. Turns out that my dad had worked with the guy before, and apparently everyone at the company thought that he was a jackass. Well, they were right. In high school, I worked in a shopping mall at a small fast food style Chinese restaurant. Think the Panda Buffet Express, but locally owned, and everything we served was made fresh in the house. Parts of the menu rotated daily. A few staples were always available, such as egg rolls and wontons. One of our regular customers was Debbie. She was a traditional terror of a customer. She wore frightening amounts of makeup. Her husband followed her around, looking like a sad, abused puppy dog. Her children always looked somewhat terrified around her. A few people had witnessed her screaming at one or both children in the parking lot before, so it was pretty much understood that she was emotionally abusive to her family. I shudder to think what could have been like to actually full-service wait staff, given how demanding that she was when it came to fast food, and how she treated her family. She frequented our shopping mall, and was known at all the neighboring fast food restaurants for her ridiculous requests, such as expecting the Orange Julius employees to go off recipe with her drinks. But she was the craziest about the cream cheese wontons. When Debbie was told that she wasn't going to be able to have her special wontons made for her, she actually stomped her foot on the ground like a little kid. Now, I will admit, our cream cheese wontons should have contained more filling, but the owner, who is the main cook and was always in the kitchen, wanted to keep costs low and would semi-police how much cream was used to fill them. But Debbie couldn't stand for that. I'm not sure exactly how it started, as she has been a customer since before I started working there. But when she came in, she would always ask for the owner. When he came out, she would ask for an order of her special cream cheese wontons. This meant that rather than ordering the ones that were available to all the other customers, she wanted an order made fresh, usually the ones on the steam table that had been cooked quite recently, 5 to 10 minutes ago, typically. But I can at least understand wanting them hotter, crispier, things like that. But that wasn't all. She didn't just want them cooked to order. She wanted them constructed fresh for her, and stuffed with extra cream cheese. I still don't know why the owner indulged this for so many years. We did charge her extra, but in the middle of a dinner rush, stopping to put together new wontons isn't the same as grabbing a handful from the fridge, and then just dropping them right into the fryer. One night we were out of cream cheese. We had plenty of uncooked wontons on hand, just not the ingredients to make new ones. When Debbie was told that she wasn't able to have her special wontons made for her, she actually stomped her foot on the ground like a little child. She turned back to the owner, said that she'd be back shortly. She turned to her husband and kids, barked at them to follow her right out the door. 10 minutes later, she showed up with a block of cream cheese that she had just purchased at the grocery store across the street, just so that she could have her special wontons that night after all. When I was 16, I worked at McDonald's. There was a customer who was always unreasonable, mean, and just outright cruel to the cashiers. We called him Hitler. He's always seemed to come off hours, which was a mercy for any other customer who might have to deal with him. One of the other cashiers had gone to the manager. One of the guys in the back ran out, sprang over the counter, grabbed the guy, and then wrestled him to the ground. The cashiers used to stand around the corner and argue about who would have to deal with him. That day, when Hitler had come in, I was unlucky enough to be the one to deal with him. He ordered a quarter pounder. He then proceeded to send it back 3 times because it wasn't exactly how he wanted it to be. The pickles being precisely placed, stuff like that. After he ate his sandwich, he came back and ordered a soft serve. I used to work at an ice cream place, so I was a master at making the perfect cone. I made it, and then he screamed at me about how it wasn't big enough and how I was trying to rip him off. I took a deep breath, went back and made another. I made it even bigger for him. He screamed again because it wasn't pretty enough. I took it back and made yet another one. This time, the stream of obscenities that poured from his mouth could have earned a movie and an X rating. He grabbed me by my wrist as I offered it to him, yanked me forward, grabbed the cone, and then smashed it into my face. And then he asked me if I wanted to fucking eat the piece of shit. Being 16, I had burst into tears. One of the other cashiers had gone to the manager. One of the guys in the back had ran out, sprang over that counter. As the guy that jumped over the counter wrestled him to the ground, the manager had called the police. They arrested him for assault. After I finished crying, I never felt so triumphant in all of my life. Then he had the nerve to come back again. My manager kindly told him that he was unwelcome, and that if he set foot on the premises again, they would call the police and have him trespassed. My friend and I went to P.F. Chang's for her birthday 2 years ago, and it was me, her name is Jana, our friend Sloane, and her little brother who was like 7 at the time. Our server never came to our table. When he did, he gave us completely wrong drinks, bread plates that had someone else's leftover food on it, and got mad when we told him that he didn't give us what we ordered. Then after 20 minutes of him not coming back with the right food, we asked another waitress. She told us that he never placed a second order for us. Then when it was time to tip, my friends weren't going to give him anything, but I felt bad, so I was just going to leave him 12%. Then as we were leaving, he ran in front. We had assumed that it was to open the door for us. He closed the door right in our face. It was obvious that we were leaving, and even another server had walked up and was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Let me get that for you." So I walked back to the table, took my tip back. Then, I'm not even kidding you, we left the restaurant. He legit ran up to us 800 feet from the front door and started to cuss us out about how we were little bitches for not leaving him a tip. When we went to go speak to his manager, he literally held the front door closed so that we couldn't get inside. Then we watched the manager fire him, but it was wild as fuck.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.